Off-camera flash, of course, is becoming very, very popular. Not becoming, it already is very popular. Everyone loves to do it. When I started, there was no off-camera flash. You had to actually get a long sync cord and hopefully frame your subjects in a way where you wouldn't see the cord, or you'd have to retouch it, which of course was almost impossible back when I started. But off-camera flash now, with the triggers that we have, with the lighting gear that we have, you can basically have no line of sight from your trigger to the flash and fire the flash, and you can overpower the sun. There are so many things that you can do with off-camera flash. You might ask me, Jerry, why would you choose continuous light or your ice light, for example, other than off-camera flash? When would you choose one or the other? I think the rule for me is I simply use flash when I need more power. I'm not going to overpower the sun with a continuous light or an ice light or anything like that. When I need more power than a continuous light that will give me, that's when I use flash. Now, it does give you a little bit of a higher, I guess, challenge when you're photographing with off-camera flash, because you sort of have to predict how it's going to fall, where it's going to fall, and all those different things. What I like to do, whether it's an assistant, whether it's actually a light stand, the way that I can get predictable lighting, just like continuous, and know where the shadows will fall, is this. So let's say, for example, so the wide camera that's on me right now, so I'm the subject right now, and even though that now I've got continuous lighting on me and it's flooding me and all that kind of stuff, I want to create, so this is the wide shot that I'm doing of the groom. This is an environment, it could be like a cityscape or anything like that. But I want to create a shadow on my face this way. Now, you might just say to your assistant, hey, stand on a 45-degree angle and then just bomb the flash and let's hope for the best. Let's have a look at the back of the camera and let's see what we do. Well, you can do that, or you can make it a bit more predictably easier for you. So what I want you to do is tell your assistant to draw an imaginary line from their eyes to the flash to this eye. Why? Well, let's think about it. So let's say, so if I close my eye here, for example, right, I can just see off this light stand that's holding this light that's illuminating me right there. So now I know that if I have my assistant standing right there, now if we reverse the roles right now, so I'm the assistant photographing Jerry this way, I draw an imaginary line from my assistant's eye to the flash to Jerry's eye, this eye, okay, so my right eye or camera left. Then what's going to happen is if we put the flash just here where it can just see this eye socket, that's going to naturally create a shadow on this side. Therefore, I've got a beautiful direction of light. I'm shooting on the shadow side and life is good. Well, what else do you have to remember? Well, of course, you have to remember how to expose for the ambience, and we'll talk about that very shortly. But let me show you a couple of examples of off-camera flash. This one was just using an ordinary speed light, and this was actually the location of the ceremony of a recent wedding in Dallas. And they had this beautiful little crystal sort of shape and everything like that. And of course, that is not the way it looked like with my own two eyes. It wasn't. But I actually had Joe, my assistant, who's actually filming this very production right now, on a ladder. He put the speed light right on the top, and then we bombed the flash over here. So it's like a quick little burst of water, and if we liken our light to water in our many analogies with the discussion of lighting, a quick little burst of water, and of course she has to bring her chin up dramatically so we don't get the shadow of her nose on the lip. And of course, it's not meant to be natural. No girl just wears a dress like that and stands underneath a chandelier and does that. But we're glorifying the fantasy here with this particular bride. She holds the actual, the crystals there very carefully and beautifully and elegantly, chin up, and now we get that light backlighting those crystals, which is going to make the light look spectacular in that area. So you just have to know what light does. So think of it like continuous light is continuous water flooding your subject. Now with flash, you're just putting on the hose really quickly. Like you're putting on the hose really quickly, you're spreading the light out around, and it depends on what you do. Now, remember too that most speed lights will have a function where you can zoom the flash head. So if this is the flash head, okay, this is a normal flash speed light, the flash head has a bulb inside it, the flash bulb. Now, please read the instructions if you haven't already, but you can zoom your flash head. So you can retract the actual flash inside it, so it gives you a narrower beam. It's never going to be perfectly straight unless you use a snoot, but it'll still go out in a bit of a triangle, but it will retract and give you a narrower beam. Now, if you zoom the flash head a bit forward and make it wider, you are spraying the water out. So it depends on what look and feel that you want. If you want a bit of a spot, you're going to retract the zoom, let's say at 200 mil, depending on what system you're using. If you want to go wider, you might go to 24, for example, and it might give you this beautiful wide angle of view. Do you want a big spray? Do you want a sort of a strong hose-like effect? Depends on what you want. In this example, I knew straight away what was going to happen, because if I put the flash on the ground, backlight this with flash, this will look like incredible three-dimensional lettering at the start of a movie scene or some description, and it works really, really well. Now, typically a lot of people like to use off-camera flash on location, and that is doing something like this. So now, how did I get this effect? Well, first of all, the natural environment was a bit brighter than this, but I wanted it darker. So I got the exposure for the sky first, because I can't control that, right? So I get the exposure. The couple aren't even in the photograph at all at this point. I get the exposure. This may have been 100 ISO, 250 speed at f16, let's say. Now, if I put them actually in the shot, they're going to be pretty much pitch black, because they're in shadow, and the sky and everything else is in sun. I find this technique works better when they're either backlit or they're in shadow. If they're already in the sun and the sky is the same exposure than them, you don't really need the flash. Why would you need it? You wouldn't need it. So what I do is put them in shade, I expose for the background, and what did we say? We said, get your assistant to pretend like they've got an imaginary line from the assistant to the speed light to the couple. So I think Melissa was doing this one. So Melissa was right over here, and then she knew that where the direction of the flash was, it would not actually, it would create a shadow here. If she was too far in front, that light, that water would flood the couple so much. But I want a bit of shadow depth and dimension and form, and we've said many times that we want to turn the body away from the light and the face back in, or in this case, turn the light away from the body. Because we pose her like that, but now I need the light to come like this to get this beautiful detail on her dress. So that's what we do. And that's the way that you'll get a higher, I guess, retention value of quality images, rather than just, I don't know, stand there on an angle and shoot, shoot, shoot. Well, wait a second. Pose them first, then get the light, bang, and then you go from here. Now, in our 5-step process, let's talk about this for a second. In our 5-step process, we talk about light number 1, location number 2, pose number 3, technique number 4, and emotion number 5. If a location attracts me first, then really number 2 has become the first thing that I've done. Just remember, if a location attracts you first, you have to go back and find the good light or create the good light. And in this case, that's a perfect example of what I just mentioned. All right, let's show another example. In this case, we have nothing but a blank wall. It was just nothing but a hallway, actually between two buildings. But I thought if we get it nice and close with that parasol umbrella right next to the wall, we're going to create a beautiful shadow on the back there. So because I've done this before, I know that that light from that flash needs to be strong enough to create that dramatic shadow, and there we have it. But of course, I also wanted one of the couple. You'll notice that this time, do you see how the shadow is more defined? This was flash straight on Megan here. This here, it's softer. Now, how did I create that look and effect? Is because I got the flash, bounced it off the wall this time, and back on them. So, in other words, I didn't just put the shower head on them, I ricocheted off the wall, so it softens it, as in less water goes on this particular couple. Then I go back to the groom, because I want to sell a spread of the bride, the groom, and the couple. And then, again, I go full flash, bang like that. I love the fact that we see a very clear outline and a defined shadow on the side of him, and it just works really well. All right, what about in the open air again? Let's have some fun here. So this is in the dry lake bed in Las Vegas. They're just walking along. The light is sort of behind them. I actually don't like that little tickle of light on his nose. I think that's actually quite distracting, so I should have turned his face a bit more to the left. This is out of camera and unretouched, but for me that's a big mistake, because I catch those things all the time. But I wanted to also show you that I'm human too, and I might miss some things in the heat of the battle. But the flash right behind, skims him, goes on her. We said turn the body away from the light or the face back in, or turn the light away from the body. So now we have that beautiful shadow in the middle of the dress, shadow on the cleavage, and it just skims the surface, and we expose for the sky first, and then of course we add the flash in as well. And depending on what camera system that you're using, you can rely on TTL. Some systems are really cool because you can actually just expose for the ambience, in other words, get the exposure that you want for the background. Then you add TTL flash through the lens. The camera is and the flash are talking together and saying, I believe the flash should output this much power based upon what you're showing me here. The camera will not always be right. The flash won't always be right. What you do know is what you basically want. This is the effect that I want. So get your exposure right. What I normally do is I use TTL to start off with and have a look. And some units are really cool because if you like what TTL is giving you, just switch a button to manual and all of a sudden it'll retain that value throughout the whole time. No matter what you do, your camera angle, whatever, it'll keep that flash power exactly the same. Now, if you're working a little bit more quickly and working in a different environment, then of course those values might change if you keep it on TTL because your environment's changing. Maybe your angle of view, your perspective, your lens choice, all those things will come into play and factor in when you're working with exposure. This particular one, similar environment, I've got the flash right behind her. I've lowered the flash power a little bit there too, so I get detail on the veil, a little tickle of light on her face, so I make sure her head and shoulders are above the environment. We've got that beautiful exposure there, which is the exposure that I wanted, and then I add the flash, and then we get the shot. What I try to do mainly, guys, is this. I try to actually make the flash not look like flash. This was actually using a softbox, and I'm tilting the softbox up so it just skims the light. There's a little bit of a hint of shadow there as well, but you can see how the highlight on her and the shadow on the ground are a lot softer than they are here. And well, here is a bit soft as well than the other ones. So generally speaking, I like to skim the light off the ground, barely touch it, barely tickle it, so it actually feels a little bit more natural. But again, she's turning her body away from the light and her face back in. We expose for the sky, and life is good. And of course, if you look at the various case studies and the weddings that we've included in this bundle, you'll see quite a few examples of me doing this on location. So quite simply, with anything, guys, that we've talked about, if you want to get better at it, you have to practice. I would suggest that you probably start with existing light, continuous light, because you can see what you're doing. And then what happens is with continuous light, you're standing in a situation, it's already existing, it's already there, you can just move the subject according to the light and be done. But after a while, when you get experience with continuous light, you say to yourself, if only this light could be moved here or there or up or be made bigger or made smaller. Well, that's where off-camera flash comes in, where you can put it wherever you want. You can actually have more power. You can overpower the sun, overpower the window, and that is a really important skill to learn. So remember, I'm going to say this over and over again, repetition, experience, and practice will be your best teacher. Our next segment, we're going to look at on-camera flash. How do we make on-camera flash not look like on-camera flash, where everyone looks like a deer in the headlights and light is flooding the person and looks flat and two-dimensional and just unflattering? How do we make on-camera flash look beautiful? We'll talk about that next.